Hello, thanks for joining us on your channel of choice at this time, Africa Independent Television Reality. Welcome to Focus Nigeria. My name is Benga Aruleba. The Federal Executive Council, FEC, has approved the 2018-2020 Medium-Term Expenditure Framework, the MTEF. The document, along with the Fiscal Expenditure Strategy paper, will be the fulcrum of next year's budget, and they are required to be submitted to the National Assembly first for approval before the budget package is then submitted. But if this tempo and this timeline is sustained, this perhaps will be the first time in a long while that the budget would be submitted on time. The Minister of Budget and National Planning, Senator Udoma Udo Udoma, told newsmen after yesterday's Federal Executive Council meeting that the federal government is committed to the 7% growth rate projected in accordance with the economic recovery and growth plan. Crude oil export projection for next year's budget remains 2.3 million barrels per day.
We've been having extensive consultations in the last few weeks with the governors, with members of the public, the leadership of the National Assembly, about the medium-term expenditure framework. So it was submitted today and approved by Council. The highlights of it are that we are committed to achieving the 7% growth rate by 2020 at the end of the three-year plan in accordance with the Economic Recovery and Growth Plan. Indeed, the MTEF FSB is based on the Economic Recovery and Growth Plan. In terms of the trajectory of getting to the 7%, we've approved a slightly different trajectory in the sense that by next year, our target will be 3.5% in 2018, and in 2019, it will be 4.5%. Growth rate, and in 2020, of course, 7% growth rate. In terms of crude oil production, our estimate projection for next year is 2.3 million barrels per day. We expect it to be broken down as 1.8 million barrels per day regular crude, and then 500,000 barrels a day in terms of condensate. And the price that we've projected for next year is $45. We are also committed in the MTEF FSB to explore ways of raising additional revenues so as to reduce the debt service to revenue ratio. As the Minister of Finance said, that is part of the policy of this government, to make sure that our borrowing is controlled and to make sure that we keep a reasonable debt service to revenue ratio.
The Minister of Budget and National Planning, Senator Udo Udoma, speaking after yesterday's Federal Executive Council meeting. Let's move on. The governorship election in Anambra State is the next litmus test for INEC in its strategic work plan from now to the next 3 years. But there are indications that Anambra will live up to its billing as a state with politicians with Republican bent. Anambra will surely task INEC, no doubt. The signs are already emerging. As many as 31 of the over 40 registered political parties will field candidates for the governorship election fixed for November 18. At a meeting with the political parties on Wednesday, the State Resident Electoral Commissioner, Ukachukwu Orji, pleaded with them to abide by their own rules as well as INEC guidelines in conducting their primaries to pick candidates so that the electoral body will have less to worry about. But the big question, will these Anambra politicians, with their track record, listen to this timely warning by INEC? Very doubtful. To tell you now how that state works, one of the senatorial districts till date, I don't know whether it's Anambra Central also, has no elected representative in the Senate because the combatants across the major political parties, that is the PDP, the APC, and ABGA, have effectively boxed themselves into a legal quagmire. Long ago, the Court of Appeal ordered fresh election to elect a new senator after the court had nullified the election of Senator Uche Kunife on the platform, on the petition of Victor Ume of the PDP, of ABGA. But today, fresh litigation over whether the PDP could feed a replacement candidate or whether the APC is effectively out of the race, all have stalled and crippled INEC's plans to conduct a by-election. It is not new. In fact, this is the hallmark and is the norm with Anambra politics, and it's not about to change yet. You just need to look at the unfolding developments to see those signs already. The APC, which is starting the screening of its candidates, aspirants today, and has already been seen as a beautiful platform, has no less than 15 or so, all of them big names, already jostling to pick the party's ticket. And these are aspirants who, as I said, see themselves as, Republicans. You know the way they say it in Anambra, you has money, I has money. So no stepping down for anyone. The PDP, which has had a running battle with itself, is parading almost an equal number of aspirants as well. There's so many bickerings amongst the godfathers in the PDP. Now, 2 days ago, the National Caretaker Committee of the PDP named one of its veteran enforcers, Professor A.B.C. Nwosu, as head of a caretaker committee to oversee things in that state ahead of the screening of the aspirants. But it remains to be seen what level of support that will get from the politicians who find it so easy to procure court orders on every conceivable issue and at any conceivable cost. Even before they go for a contest, they already have so many court orders in their pockets, and they just bring it out at any purpose, to serve any purpose at any point in time. So, INEC may have chosen November 18 for that very critical governorship election in Anambra State, but whether all will go well as planned is entirely out of INEC's total control, and it depends on these godfathers in Anambra State. Meanwhile, let me go back to this issue which I had raised before and ask questions today. I'm doing this because I'm also getting some support from some newspapers this morning. I've seen the story in, I think, Daily Trust. It was in one paper yesterday or so. But first, let me ask this question. Is it possible for any other authority outside of the president or the acting president who is exercising the powers of that office to usurp the powers so expressly donated to the office of the president? Okay, let me be specific now. Sometime not too long ago, the president, before he took ill, I think that was February or March, the president, before he took ill, had nominated some people for confirmation as resident electoral commissioners, 27 of them. The Senate screened the first batch of 15 and confirmed all of them. But somehow, when the appointment was finally announced by the acting president, because the president was already away, only 14 names were announced. Don't forget that the Senate screened 15 and confirmed 15. Now, the name that was missing that time is that of Sadiq Musa, the nominee from Kaduna State. And so far, no questions are being asked as to what has happened to Sadiq's name, whom the Senate had screened and confirmed. But we are told that some members of the cabal and their allies in the Kaduna Mafia are responsible for removing Sadiq's name, from the list that was passed on to the acting president to announce. Now, before he went on recess some 2 weeks ago or so, the Senate again confirmed another batch of 8 nominees. But so far, reports from INEC suggest that only 7 were given letters yesterday, and the name that is again missing is that of Dr. Mrs. Asma Usani Meikudi, the nominee from Katsina State. And for emphasis, the only female on the list of 27 ranks forwarded by the president in March before the president took it. Now, my little investigation reveals that it's the same cabal in the presidency that is also at work here, you know, keeping sensitive issues away from the acting president, only choosing to pass on to him what suits their purpose. But here this morning, I have revealed these developments now. The Senate should ask questions about these nominees, Sadiq Musa and Dr. Asma Umekudi. The acting president, now that we are talking about it, the acting president too should also demand for explanations on what the true situation of things are. And again, we Nigerians too should also not just keep quiet. We should also ask questions. After all, this is all about us. It's our country, you know. It's not their country. The country belongs to all of us. Anyway, I've raised this issue this morning. Let's hope that you also will raise questions on this issue. If you know who the cabals are, please tell them. What they are doing is not in the interest of Nigeria. All right, our discussion is up next. State of the nation. We'll start from security issues, probably end up with political issues or economic issues as we may find fit. This morning we already have some little setback. We're supposed to be having 2 guests, but we have one already in the studio, so it may just be the only one that will be rolling with this morning. So we'll take a quick break. When I come back, we will be flagging off the conversation.
They see chaos and conflicts. We see community action for good governance. They see poverty and want. We see perseverance and the will to go on. They see economic law. We see the ingenuity and creative spirit of our people. We are AIT News, fresh, authentic views of Africa. How would you rather see the world? AIT News, all sides, all the time.
Okay, if you're just joining us, a very warm welcome to you. We're starting this morning's conversation now. Dr. Chigozie Enwere is a lecturer at the Nile University of Nigeria here in Abuja. Dr. Enwere, good to see you.
Thank you so much.
Unfortunately, you will be home alone. Well, you are in good company here. Dr. Ayon Kunle Fagbemi was supposed to be here this morning, bailed out at the last minute, some emergency, but it's okay.
No.
Which would you want us to start with? Okay, let's start from general issues. Let's start with security. Okay, the Ozoburu. I hope I got the name right. Ozoburu in Ekusogo local government area of Anambra State. I said on Monday or Tuesday or so that before or by the end of this week, if we are still talking about this issue at all, it will be in muffled tones. I have been proven right because 5 days after that heinous and dastardly act, the police has not told Nigerians whether they are making progress at all on their investigations, whether any arrests have been made, who they are, and all of that, for such a crime that sparked off such a national outrage. If care wasn't taken, could have even led to some crises elsewhere because of the insinuations that immediately followed. Oh, it was Fulani men. Oh, it was these people that were killing IPOB members and all of that. 5 days after, nothing is coming from the police. What do we make of all of this? That's how that matter is going to die.
Yeah, you see that one thing about the crisis in Anambra State, the Ozobli case, is just one out of the many. But the thing we need to understand in Nigeria, before I comment on this issue of security, let me link it up with the statement of the Senate about the rejection of the bill on devaluation. One is that they say that they are unable to understand the meaning between devolution and restructuring. That shows you that in this country, not only in the political aspect, but also in the security aspect, we don't understand the basic meaning of certain concepts. Like in Nigeria today, what is the kind of conflict that we're experiencing in Nigeria? The Ozobli case, the Boko Haram, the agitation in the southeast, the agitation in the Niger Delta. What kind of conflict is this? Because we cannot categorize it. That is why we're having a recurrence of these conflict issues.
And we seem to be applying the same antidotes to all of the
yes.
problems. Kidnapping, it is the same
method. Now, look at it this way. Every conflict in a society is divided into symmetric and asymmetric. When you talk about symmetric issues, you are talking about the fact that differences in interests and goals, incompatibility, it can only be resolved through dialogue. It can be resolved through conciliation and mediation. But when you talk about asymmetric conflict, it is as a result of one, the way the society is structured or arranged, which has resulted into only two classes in the society, the top dog and the underdog.
They have
and they have not. And you see that all this problem we're having in this country is as a result of the fact that the house don't want the system to be changed because it benefits them. And the have-nots, which are majority the youth, are agitating for a change in the way the society is structured. And the only way to solve this problem is through agitation and violence. You can't dialogue under this kind of issue. And you see that is why you see that in the Northeast, agitation. Why? You talk about Boko Haram issue. You see that the Boko Haram, a young man will leave his father's house and go to an Islamic school for years. When he comes back to the society, there is nothing for him. Agitation by the youth, which we christened Boko Haram. In the Southeast, you see that somebody in the Southeast will stay for a longer period of time, no job. Kidnapping and what happened in Ozoblo takes place. In the North Niger Delta, you see that there are a lot of resources, but yet the youth are suffering. And you see that this basic issue is as a result of asymmetric nature of the conflict in Nigeria. And just like the Senate said, they don't understand the difference between devolution and restructuring. And also in the security aspect, most people don't understand the difference between symmetric and asymmetric, and the kind of approach that will be used to resolve it. You see that in this asymmetric conflict, all of us are talking about dialogue. All of us are talking about mediation. You cannot mediate when the structure is faulty. So that is what is happening in all these issues. Look at the Ozoblo case. Who are involved? The youth. Niger Delta, the youth. Biafran IPOB issue, the youth. Boko Haram, the youth. What is the main reason for this? And let me tell you the main reason for this problem. You see that when you compare the use of yesteryears and the use of today, the use of yesteryears from 1960 to 1970, you see that most of the people that rule Nigeria under military regime at the age of 30, 35. Why? But today, a young man of 30, 35 is still unemployed, roaming the streets. Why is this difference? Let me tell you the difference. It's because of the structure of the society, the way the society is arranged. From 1960 to 1970, the derivation formula for state, the states were very viable to accommodate. That is why you see that person will be in the university then, before he graduates, he already have a job. Because he's not looking onto the federal government, the states are there to provide jobs. Why was the state so viable to provide jobs at that time? There was low level of insecurity in the country then. No agitation by the youth. Why? Because in 1960, the derivation formula for the states was 50%. From 1960 to 1970, the states were able to generate funds, employ people, absorb the shock and the threat of insecurity. Then in 1970, it was reduced to 45%. Till around 1975, when it was reduced to 25%. You see that from 1975, the issue of insecurity started in this country because the states were unable to provide for themselves.
Yeah. That was
and
how robbery
started in Nigeria.
Highway robbery.
Highway robbery, yes. Highway robbery.
It was confined to major roads.
And then our Nigerian policymakers were unable to understand because of the fact, just like the Senate said, they don't understand the differences in concepts. Now, the climax came in 1983 when the derivation formula was reduced to 1.5%. The states became poor. The state became an appendix of the federal government. Nigerians became poor. The states can no longer pay their salaries. They started retrenchment of workers. They can no longer provide for infrastructures. Yeah. And at that particular period, the youth of today that are agitating were growing up. And now they are growing up. You see that the derivation formula was 1.5%. The state was destroyed. The state economy was destroyed. And the youth then, all of them started moving to Abuja in search of employment because there is over-concentration of resources at the center. And because of this over-concentration of resources, corruption came into play. All the high-profile corruption in this country is as a result of one at the federal level. All high-profile corruption cases, not at the state. I'm not saying that the states are not corrupt, but high-profile corruption cases where it runs to billions of dollars at the federal government because the resources have been centralized there. 87% of the resources controlled by one arm of the level of government. And you see that these resources were lying idle. And because they were lying idle, they need something for it. People started sustaining themselves with this. Corruption became so viable. In 1960, do you talk about corruption? So you see that the youth of today are marginalized as a result of the way the society is arranged, is configured. Yeah. And that is why you see some of the people that are 60, 70 years, they will tell you, in our own days, it was not like. In your own days, the states were viable. In our own days today as youth, the states are no longer viable. Over concentration of power. Then kidnapping came in because they need to redistribute the income. Who are being kidnapped? The top dog. Who have.
Taking forcefully from them.
Taking forcefully from them. Millions. Then the issue of the Ozoblu case came in. Boko Haram came in. Niger Delta agitation started. IPOB started. And when you look at the time these youths are demonstrating between 9 o'clock and 2 o'clock in the afternoon, that shows you they don't have jobs.
So all of these conflicts that we are seeing, they are symptomatic of structural defects.
Yes.
If we need to attend to them, it is the structure we need to address.
Yes.
Not a top-bottom kind of thing.
Yes.
But if we begin to disaggregate these issues, the Ozobulu killings, for instance, a lot of people, I've read a lot of things, some people making case for decentralization of security again, that perhaps these incidents that are happening in staccato form are wake-up calls for us to, as part one item out of the agitation struggle, issue of how do we manage our security architecture. Can we still continue to have a centralized police formation? Because right now, even if you look at some of the things going on in the National Assembly, the constitutional amendment process, the only thing that has happened to the Nigerian police is simply to remove the force, Nigerian police force, simply to remove force from the name of the Nigerian police and leave it at Nigerian police. Nobody has talked about how to attend to the clamor for the states to have some level of control over the police.
Now, let me tell you something. You see that in asymmetric conflicts, we're expressing this. If the structure is not redesigned or reviewed, we'll still be having more conflicts. I don't want to blame the police, because the police are not the policymakers that will change this structure. They are trying their best. But the issue is there that in asymmetric conflict, this is just like a principle. There is an outcome. For every asymmetric conflict, the outcome is aggressive behavior. The outcome is agitations. The outcome is violence. And destruction. It's not like symmetric conflict where you talk about dialogue and conciliation. So you see that, look at the conflicts surrounding Africa, in Tunisia, the same thing we are talking about, the issue of structure. Somebody was in power for 34 years. The same political structure running. In Nigeria today, from 1966 to present day, the same political structure, unitary system of government, over centralization of resources in one arm of government. That led to the Arab Spring. The problem in Syria, Libya, as a result of asymmetric conflict, structural problems. And the way to resolve it is violence. But if it is well managed and the structure is well redefined and changed smoothly without its hesitation, then the society will move forward. Like the Ozoblu case, look at it this way, in a church.
Yeah.
in a
that's
church.
That's the worrisome aspect of it. That if this is a symptom of a problem, and we have not tried to solve that problem,
Now, let me tell you,
what guarantees do we have that
you see the
we cannot have Ozobulu
Yes.
recurring in different places
have you asked yourself, why is it that?
in the nearest future?
Have you ever asked yourself, are we Nigerians asking questions? Why is that the youth are attacking church violently? You see that the political culture has been able to influence the religious values of this country, not only for Christians, but also for Muslims. You see that in the church today, if you are not rich, no person will recognize you. If you are not worthy or have political power, no person will recognize. That means that the house also dominates the church. Since the house dominates the church, and you see that what happened from the reports we are having as a result of business days, the house are now struggling to take control of the resources of the state. So you see that the problem we are having in Nigeria is that, just like this Tina said, inability to understand the right concepts. And we are applying the wrong method in resolving it. For you to resolve asymmetric conflict, you need to change the structure of the society, the way the societies are. In Nigeria today, the way the societies are arranged, the poor is getting poorer and the rich is getting richer. And also, for you to contest election in this country, you need to be very wealthy. That is a systematic way of alienating the youth.
So those who are even
power.
talking about not understanding the problem
Yes.
and how to provide solutions to it, those who are saying, okay, if you are complaining about those in government, you too try and see if you can take over the reins of power.
You can't.
Are also not
Aware.
being realistic of the fact that for you to even nurse the ambition of being a local government chairman, you need, if you don't have the money of your own, you need the anointment of a godfather somewhere.
Yes.
Who also sets the agenda for you as to what you can do and what you cannot do.
Yes.
So it's not power because you want to change society, but power because somebody wants to use it in a particular way.
It's true. And you see that one thing about this kind of conflict we're having in Nigeria is that, one, the top dogs and the house can never want the structure to be changed because they are benefiting. And the have-nots, which are majority of the youth today, will always want the structure to be changed. And that conflict of interest leads to the aggressive behavior that we're experiencing in the society in terms of kidnapping, in terms of the issue of government moving into a church to keep people.
Court killings
Yes.
too.
And you see that the conflict in Ozobili is a conflict among the house.
So we are not even about to solve the problem of Ozobulu. Ozobulu can happen anywhere.
Everywhere.
Okay, we have not even found an end yet to the Evans. So many Evans.
Yes.
Will still probably Bado. We have not even talked of tackling Bado. So,
More of this will be coming up in the society if you don't address the
or
issues.
1
in
million
this
boys, they call them or so.
Yes. More conflicts. More conflicts. You see that in Nigeria today, the Nigerian people, the policy makers in this country, they need more education to understand these concepts. Like, for instance, look at China. You see that China was a socialist society. You see that they they changed the structure from socialism to capitalism. Today, they are one of the highest capitalist states in the world, controlling the world economy. It happened smoothly. But look at Soviet Union. When the issue of perestroika and glasnost came up.
Glasnost and
Yeah,
perestroika.
yes. You see that they were so rigid to change. And because of that rigidity, which we are still experiencing in Nigeria and other parts of Africa, it led to violent breakup.
Break away.
So
Break up, actually.
break up. Because when the structure is faulty, there is need for systematic change, smooth change. And when this smooth change happens, all this issue of agitation for Biafra, Arewa use and quit notice and all the rest of them, kidnapping will drastically be declining. Because that is the way to resolve such conflict. Change the structure.
Who takes the lead in all of this? Whose call is it?
Now, you see that in Nigeria today, look at the structure of Nigerian society. From 1960 to 1966, Nigeria was operating a true federal system of government. The region were able to develop at their own pace. I don't want to use the word region because most people, when they talk about this issue of federalism, they will talk about returning back to the region. No, it doesn't mean that. What it means is addressing the way the society, the political arrangement of the society. There are two ways to arrange every society, either unitary system or federal system. Unitary system operates very fine in a nation. What I mean by a nation is people that have the same culture.
Not a nation of nation states.
Yes. But in people that have common culture, common language, common religion, it operates very smoothly. But when federalism, as another alternative, operates in a multicultural society, where you have so many nations
Multi-nation states
coming together to form a state. And that is the problem of Nigeria. And you see that various nations came together to form the Nigerian state. Yeah. And because of that, the structure should always be visited. Like the current call for restructuring is nothing more than the call for restoration of federalism. And federalism has components. Which aspect is devolution of power? I don't want to use that terminology because they don't understand it. Let us talk about simple word, decentralization of power.
Yeah. Are there certain things that you have put in the federal
yes.
in Abuja, and Abuja is not doing well, and you think that if you let go and ask states to take charge of such responsibilities, they can do better because Nigerians will get more advantages from
all those things. Now look at it in Nigeria today. You see that the issue of this decentralization, so many people misunderstood restructuring. They don't understand the meaning. So I don't want to use that of restructuring. I don't want to use the meaning, the devolution. They don't understand the meaning. So you see that, let us use a simple word, decentralization. Okay. And in a federal system, you have three lists, the residual list, the concurrent list, and the exclusive list. You see that what happened in Nigeria after the Civil War was that most of the items in the concurrent list was transferred to the exclusive list. That is why in the exclusive list, you have 68 items, including water resources, natural resources, electricity, even
trade and commerce.
And all. So you see that there is over concentration, agriculture, in education, in the health services, in the hands of the state, of the federal government. And you see that it is becoming overwhelming. And you see that the population of Nigeria, when they did this in 1970, was less than what we have today. The population has expanded. And because of that, the federal government can no longer be able to contend with these functions. There is need to revisit some of the items. Like, for instance, we talk about power failure in this country. The issue of power failure, the state cannot generate electricity, and they cannot distribute. And you see that most of the states, like Rivers State, they have built power plants, but they cannot operate. You need to transfer it to the federal government. And you see that based on that, there is shortage of electricity all over the country. Why can't you bring it back to the concurrent list? The issue of railway, you see most of the railways are non-functional. Why can't you leave it to the states and bring it back to the concurrent list? The issue of natural resources, which can make the state more viable, bring it back to the concurrent list. And the duty lies with the National Assembly and the executive.
To make that call.
Yeah, to make that
a lot of people
constitutional change.
Okay, a lot of people will also tell you that those items that are now that have populated the exclusive list and had made it to swell from a few items to the 60-something or so that we have today, that they started gradually. The federal started grabbing gradually during the years of military rule.
Yes.
And the question is, have we sufficiently addressed the issues that led to that, the suspicions that led to the federal becoming too large as we have it today?
You see, the problem is that the military rule in Nigeria, they don't understand federalism. Look at the structure of the military. It is more or less a unitary structure, command and control. Yeah. So to them, when they came into power after 1966 coup, they don't understand now what federalism means. You need to decentralize power. To them, it looks as insubordination. So what they understand is centralization of power and resources, which is similar to the structure and their own training.
Yeah, because you can only have one commander
Yes.
issuing an order from the top at every point.
At every point. So that is how they understood the society. So they transited the military culture into the Nigerian society and changed the structure from federal system to unitary system to suit them, because that is what they understood, that command structure. So that command structure, that was why when you look at the derivation formula, in 1960 it was 50%. When the military came into power, the Gowon administration reduced it to 45%. In 1975, the next military administration reduced it to 25%, tried to accumulate more resources to the center because they don't understand how resources can be managed by the states. Then, in 1983, they reduced it to 1.5%. The states died. Nigerians became poor. There is over-centralization.
The military has since left the structures of power.
Is
it that the politicians that were bred under that period had been still in that concept, such that they also cannot understand what it means to
you see one thing? You came into a system where there is a lot of resources at your disposal. Can you live it?
You grew through that system.
You grew through that system, and you saw the comparative advantage of that centralization. So you see that
somebody is now suggesting that you should shed.
Yes,
that
and look at what happened in National Assembly when it come about dissolution and the issue of immunity. They granted immunity to the members of the parliament, the key actors in the parliament. But when it come about, let us decentralize these resources so that the center cannot be able to hold, they rejected. It was rejected. Because the House will always want the society to be centralized so that the resources will be at their beck and call. And that is why you see today, every state government have camp in hand begging for resources from Abuja. There are two sources of revenue for the state, VAT and federal allocation. And you see that the center control this. And because of the fact that the central control this, the state governors, I pity for them because they don't have enough of resources at their disposal. And this, they come to Abuja, beg and come back. That is when you listen to the budget of most states, 2017 budget, they will tell you that why our budget is running to deficit is because of the fact that the international price of oil has increased. And you begin to ask yourself, what is the relationship?
This particular state selling oil?
Oil. But indirectly, they are telling you that the allocation that they're getting from the federal government is small. So you see that they tie their own economy to that of the federal government, what they get from the federal government. No state has independent economy. And that is why people are suffering.
Maybe with the exception of maybe two, Lagos.
Let's talk about Lagos. You see that we are talking about Lagos. You see Lagos.
And rivers.
Just like they said, they generate 3% of the VAT. How much goes back to Lagos?
Which is the reason why a state like Lagos cannot fix a major road like the Apapa-Oshodi Expressway. And the federal is too far away here in Abuja. Cannot see the impact of what that deplorable condition of that road is causing the economy, and causing the people of Lagos, and causing the local economy of Lagos.
It's true. So you see that is the major problem in this country. So unless we begin to look at that unitary system centralizes resources. And when they are enjoying it, that is why in Nigeria today there are only two classes, the house and the have-not, very extreme. And all the security challenges we're having in this country is as a result of the struggle between the house and the have-nots.
Is there a way we can stonewall on this issue of restructuring at all, in the light of the agitations here and there, even where the agitations have been largely political? It could snowball and spiral out of control. And then where the agitations have taken on the coloration of crime, as in Boko Haram. Boko Haram started as an agitation.
Yes.
Kidnapping could spiral out of control and become something else. The Badugu court activities in Lagos and Ogun axis could spiral out of control and assume some other levels of coloration and all of that. So something that an agitation that may be political today could actually have its roots in economic issues and all of, and vice versa. Can we stonewall on these things for so long, beyond the peaceful opportunities we have now to begin to look at these issues one after the other and attend to them?
You see that, just like you have just mentioned, there are two types of conflict: constructive conflict and destructive conflict. What we are having in Nigeria, the agitation by IPOB, Niger Delta, this issue of even kidnapping, they are constructive conflict that is sending signal to the society. Let us restructure. Let us reorganize the political system. Let us reorganize the economic system. That is the signal. But one thing that once constructive conflict is grossly mismanaged, it snowballs into destructive and violent conflict. And that is what every society should always guide against. Look at the issue of the conflict in Tunisia. He just started, just a young graduate. He was unable to get a job. Yeah. He was selling fruits at the streets.
They went there and destroyed it.
And destroyed it. And see that destruction gathered a lot of people that are already bottled up. And they have to release it. And you see that the problem we have in this Nigeria today, they are condemning the youth. They call them hoodlums. I don't use that word. You need to trace the root cause. You see that the expectation, why we are having all this restiveness among the youth is that the expectation does not match the actual need satisfaction. A young graduate that comes out of the university expects a good job. But in actual sense, what has been able to achieve? Zero. Nothing. Now, let me give you an example. When I was in primary school, they will ask us, who is the head of state of Nigeria? You call name. Today, after my graduation from the university, you still ask me who is the president, you still call the same name you called in primary school. The same name you called in primary school, you are still calling those same names again when you are still an adult. The president of Nigeria, you call the name in primary school.
And it's not as if the country has changed much.
It has not changed. So you see that the same group of people, the top dogs, are controlling the structure. And every aspect of agitation will be seen as them as a violent reaction against the unity of the country. No. Restructuring does not talk about disintegration. It is more or less to strengthen the unity of this country so that the youth can participate.
All right, if we lump all the problems together, certainly there should be the low-hanging ones, the low-hanging fruits, yes, that it should be easier for us, even as a people, to deal with. I'm going to be asking all of those issues, even on the security issue. What are the low-hanging fruits that we can actually easily reach out to and plug, and everybody is satisfied with it because they are not contentious? But let me read a few, read some tweets. We already have a few. Tony Uzo Anthony: until the federal government keeps the Nigerian youth busy with jobs, they will always keep the federal government busy with problems. Very instructive. Keep me busy, I keep you busy. Dele Jackson Medj: Ogagbenga, the federal government must show the political way to fight corruption, address insecurity and political problems in Nigeria using its machineries. Ademola says Project Nigeria is not working because policymakers copy the US system, which gives room for corruption. Demand for accountability first. Okay. Cecilia Okoroma: a worship center donated by a criminal. What do we expect? Religious leaders are corporates. They are not doing what is right. Okay. I think that's in reaction to the Ozobolo development. Raji says, without any history of business success of inheritance, we give chieftaincy titles to questionable characters and public nuisance. And Hope Osawoyi says, your guest is speaking the mind of thousands of Nigerians. I just hope the government will ever listen to the voice of reasoning. And then Proudly Nigerian says, the same leadership that failed with limited resources available now, will they have the capacity to perform anew or loot? and then Okolo Chikunyere. This current structure, I think that's what it meant. This current structure is creating more unemployment and paving way for insecurity. Let states go and create wealth, not sharing wealth in Abuja. Cecilia Okoroma again, we are money mongers. Churches are now built and donated by known hard criminals all over, and they are highly celebrated. Sound analysis by your guests, but these your political leaders won't listen. Nigeria can never be better under this present structure, lazy structure. That's Okolo Chukwunyere. All right. Okay, 4 new. Let me see. Cecilia Okoroma Chigbenga, please continue to cry out for us. So the world is laughing. President Trump said we need to be recolonized. Okay. Ede Long John. In as much as I support restructuring and devolution of powers, the need for good governance is also very key. But how do we bring about good governance if all we are saying are just falling on deaf ears? You can't build something on nothing. Nigerian system was built on falsehood, hence the recent agitation here and there. That's Omogbola about CFR. Let's interrogate some of the issues. I said, in putting all the issues in the mix now, are there issues that we can easily attend to without rocking the boat to the suspicion of one group against the other? Issue of security, for instance. Can we continue to have a centralized police structure?
You see
or
that
security structure?
So you see that, before I go to that question, let us just look at some of the problems in this country. They say good governance is one of the key issues. I agree with that. Good governance, but a good structure.
Good governance based on what structure?
Yes. Now, you see that the issue in this country is this. One, look at what the statement of the Senate that released to Nigerians. A senator or a member of the parliament would not understand the meaning of devolution, and the meaning of restructuring. Restructuring and devolution is the same thing. And you see that boils down to the kind of policy makers that we have. They need more education. You see that the problem we have in this country is that ignorance breeds corruption and inefficiency. But when you have people that are well versed in knowledge ruling a particular country, you see that that country moves forward. That was why Socrates talked about the philosopher king. That before you become a leader, you must be trained. But what do we have in Nigeria? Somebody will wake up this morning because I've made a lot of money. He answers a politician. He doesn't even understand the meaning of politics and how a political system is run. Look at China. You see that in China, for you to become even a technocrat or handle public position, you must go through a particular school. So what I'm suggesting is that we have been spending money on conferences. It's not enough. Some people go to conference, they don't listen. Let there be a school that will train these our leaders in economy, in politics, and in social aspect of life.
What are the ASCONs doing? ASCON long ago was playing the role of building effective civil servants. What has happened to ASCON? What has happened to NIPS?
So
what has happened to so many others?
The same politicization of structures. So you see that this is one of the basic problems we're having. If all these things are functioning, how can the National Assembly tell us that they cannot understand the meaning of devolution, which has created a sort of mistrust among the members that made them to vote against the bill? So you see that all these institutions, one thing is to create institutions, and another thing is to make the institution to be very effective. Are they effective? Who control those institutions? Is it not as a result of who you know? Just like you mentioned, that for you to get political power, you must have a godfather. Once you have a godfather, you control institutions.
Or a cabal that wants to use you subsequently for their own interests. They begin to work to
and another thing I want to emphasize about this Ozobli case, you see that the church need to reorganize themselves. Because materialism has entered the Church of God, not only for Christians, but also Muslims. You see that in the church, for you to be recognized by the pastor, you must be very rich. And they don't ask for the sources of this money. That is why you see a pastor going on private jet. What do you expect the members to do? He doesn't have any defined means of livelihood. And you see them building universities. And the children of the poor people that are contributing offering and tithe cannot even go to that university. Their children become uneducated. Once you have a generation of uneducated people, what happens? You expect violence, aggressive behavior in the society. So that is one of the basic things. That most of the time they blame the youth. Why should you blame the youth when the structure is faulty?
Let me again reframe it and ask you pointedly. This time around, I'm asking you for your own thinking on this issue of security and the Nigerian police.
Okay.
A lot of people have said, okay, if you don't want to grant states the right to have police of their own, how about some other ideas that have been practiced and are working well in other climes, community policing and all of that? Do we need rocket science, for instance, to throw the culture of community policing?
Now, you see that the problem we have over centralization of everything in this country, even the police force. You see
the number of policemen guiding politicians in Anambra State alone. In Anambra State alone, the number of policemen that are guiding politicians. Anyway, I just use that as an example.
So you see that is exactly what we are talking about. The police force is being controlled by the federal government. Centralization of security in one arm of government. And this over-centralization, the state government, the states don't have power over security issues. So I think what should be done in this country, we have been talking about fears of state security, that the governors will use it negatively. That is one of the key arguments against it.
Yeah.
But it can still be...
Does that outweigh the positive? The
positive. You have kidnapping. You have issues of government running into a church. You have issues of youth restiveness. So there is need now to decentralize. Let the states have some take in security issues where they can make quick responsive decisions on how to curtail some of these issues. So the one thing about governance is that governance is dynamic. Security is dynamic. And because of this dynamic nature, it changes according to the demands of time and places.
All right, Dr. Ewere, we have to go down. Let me just end with some tweets as well. Lord Nolly says, at Focus Nigeria, please tell them at Millionaire Pastors. And then Adebayo Abduganiyu, the End Power initiative by PMB is good, but government must find a way to accommodate them in the civil service to reduce unemployment. Omobola Obab, CFR, the Nigerian National Assembly may not understand the concept of devolution of power because many of them are products of godfatherism. And he also went on to say, imagine how the states are impoverished over the years. States were more viable when allocated more funds, unlike now that we beg the federal government. And Okere Alexander says the House members should try to be more selfless in their service, the service they render to the nation. Biosa Chukuka, we must restructure. House will tell you that Nigeria belongs to all of us, that we have no other country than Nigeria, but you see them spending time abroad. Let's leave it there. Thank you so much, Dr. Chigozie Ewere.
Thank you.
Dr. Ewere is a lecturer at the Nile University of Nigeria here in Abuja. And I'm not so sure we have missed Dr. Ayokunle Fagbemi so much. Well, we miss him because we would have his own contributions to the discussion. But thank you for holding forth. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Appreciate your time. Enjoy the rest of the day. That's Focus Nigeria today. Enjoy the rest of the day. Do stay out of trouble so that we can meet tomorrow. My name is Gbenga Aruleba.